here. So if you want to get in on that, if you'd be so kind, it goes a long way towards supporting the channel. Go ahead and fire in a donation into the super chat. Put your question in there. We'll get those on the screen. The more the merrier. Yeah. So let's do it. All right. We got a lot to get to here. Without further ado, let's get this party started, shall we? All right. My family is over because my daughter's birthday was Monday, but her birthday party is today. And so I'm working this morning so I can make time for her afternoon party. But they're all over here, so it might be kind of loud. I guess we'll see. I don't know. I'll do my best to minimize it. But thank you for being understanding of it. Happy birthday to my daughter. Okay, let's get to it. UFC Fight Night, Della Maddalena versus Prates. This took place at the RAC Arena in Perth, Western Australia. What do we want to say? First of all, I've been kind of the belief that the sweet spot for UFC events has been, at least more consistently, has been these kind of on-the-road fight nights, but they don't bat 1,000 either. Like nothing does, right? Sometimes the Apex fights are good. Sometimes the pay-per-views are bad. You know what I mean? Like there is obviously variance even within the different three tiers, the numbered events, the on-the-road fight nights, and then the Apex fight nights. These are the three different tiers. And it's been, to my opinion, that generally the on-the-road fight nights have been some of the kind of better things that the UFC has done. This card was a little too regional-ish to be one of the better cards of the year or something like that. But it was okay. The main card, well, the main card started rough. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But it picked up, and certainly by the main event, it was really, really great. All this is to say the prelims were real bad. The main card started a little slow, but it picked up after that. There was some respectable things that happened along the way, and it kind of ended with a culmination. So how do you feel about the card overall? Not a disaster by any stretch. Not a highlight. Well, main event was nice again, and some other spots too. But overall, it was okay. It was okay. With the reason why it's only okay is because there's a lot of bad that the good has to outweigh. In the end, it kind of comes out to us okay. All right. But let's talk about this main event. Carlos Prates defeats Jack Della Maddalena. He does so at 3:17 of round number 3. Ladies and gentlemen, this was an assault. Jack Della Maddalena got mugged today. He got held up at gunpoint and got robbed. I mean, he got worked. He got work today. This is what we were a little bit concerned about on yesterday's MK, Jimmy Smith and I, partly about getting the rebounding after the Islam fight and how hard that could be. But one of the other parts too was, and I think it really showed up here, like there's going to be a lot of differences about, interpretations of about why Prates won. But let me give you maybe one of the biggest ones, if not the biggest one. The firepower of the Brazilian was overwhelming. Jack Della Maddalena was able to land, certainly in the first round, consistently enough where I thought he lost the first round, but the gap between what he was landing on Prates and the damage it was doing versus what Prates was landing on him and the damage it was doing, it was not super significant. There was, again, I thought Prates did the better work, but he kind of kept some pace. But then that pace really got away from him through the course of the second round. He got dropped at the end of the second round with leg kicks. He ended up getting dropped again in the third with leg kicks, but he got chewed to pieces. I was even saying to myself, I mean, there wasn't enough time left in the round, or actually I should say there was too much time left in the round, but I was looking at the clock in the third round and I'm like, dude, there's like 4 minutes left in this round. It was like 1 minute had expired. And I was like, if I'm the corner, I might consider throwing the towel. And if he somehow makes it back to the corner after the end of round 3, I'm definitely not letting him go back out there for round 4. He got beat up. Prates is so long. He's so powerful. We had asked on MK, where does Prates rank among welterweight punchers in the history of the UFC and the history of MMA? And there's been some big-ass punchers in this weight class, to be very clear. Johnny Hendricks is a big one. Robbie Lawler is a big one, but the list is pretty big. You've gotten some dominant punchers. I don't know, man. I think you need to start putting Carlos Prates maybe in some of these conversations. He's got to keep doing it on his way up. I don't know how JDM stood on some of those shots because honestly, the punches that Prates was landing, they were really hard, and at times they would really pop his head back. But those weren't even the most devastating strikes he was throwing. The leg kicks, obviously, it dropped it dropped JDM twice. Dude, so then he would get here's the nightmare that is dealing with Prates. He batters your leg, so then you switch stance so that your lead leg is not getting torn to pieces, but now you're in open stance. And so now he's taking that back leg and then whipping it to the ribs of JDM, and that was tearing him to pieces too. There's just nowhere to hide. He has the ability to do the double hand reach where he can then come over with the elbow, or he'll fire up the knee. He did that same knee to Charles Radke where he kind of, I don't know if he held both hands, but he certainly held one hand and then fired that knee up the middle and it dropped him and finished him off. Dude, this guy is naturally heavy-handed. He's naturally, sinewy, naturally strong. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to go out there and win the bench press record, but his ability to deliver force and to whip it at the end of his strikes the way that he does, he's a terrifying force. Terrifying. He is easily pound for pound in the conversation for most dynamic punchers in terms of pure raw power in the UFC, and certainly in that. Well, I mean, he's probably tops in that welterweight division. I'm sure Morales packs a punch, but I don't know, dude. Prates seems like he's a step ahead. So the way the fight played out was basically you could see JDM early was like, I'm going to take this fight by the scruff of the neck. I didn't hate that call. I like that call. He wanted to get Prates on his heels, right? Because if he's barreling down on you, it becomes a much tougher proposition. But if he's having to play that footwork game on the outside, which, by the way, he played a little bit. It wasn't like Prates would just get backed up and then stand his ground. There was some of that, but there was a lot of rotation on the cage as well. So that was kind of interesting, but that didn't really last very long. Eventually, Prates was able to, either nullify him or land his own shots to get JDM to back up off of him. And then Prates is on the hunt. And dude, once he's on the hunt, JDM was really just surviving to the extent that JDM could push into him and get him backed up and, constrain his defensive options and constrain, frankly, his offensive options as well. And then JDM, to the extent he was mixing up, grappling or whatever, this was again, I don't think you won the first round, but that's a workable game plan. That seems like it's a decent bet. But basically the idea is this: Prates didn't really let him do that. Prates kind of made him fight at the end of his range. And that's just not a fight JDM's going to. I don't know who's going to win that one, against Prates. If he can force a fight where he's barreling down on you and you're at the end of his range and now you're circling, trying to find some kind of place to hide in the octagon or, to slow down his offensive rhythm or output, there's a saying in the Marine Corps in terms of the sniper school: you can run, you'll only die tired. You know what I mean? That's what JDM did. You can run. I'm not saying he ran. He stood his ground as best he could. I want to be very clear. Della Maddalena went out on his sword, but in the the broader use of the expression, you can run from Carlos Prates, you will only die tired. That there's just no reasonable path to victory playing that game with him. And so Prates' ability to force this dynamic into the contest, and then his ability to mix it up where he's battering with the leg kicks and that long straight 1-2 ba. Even you could see, even when JDM would catch it or kind of roll with it, it still had an impact. You could hear it. It would physically move him. And listen, JDM got some good shots in too, some good punches, some good combinations, particularly in close. And they would have an effect. And he had some good leg kicks early as well. And those had an effect, but he could not sustain it under what Prates could do. He could not sustain attack. And whereas Prates could back him up and then really began to move into him. And that's really the dynamic of this fight. And so what were the best weapons? He was doing the double hand grab. The knees were just ridiculous. He would get, JDM has that low stance and he's going side to side right? And so you're getting him, you're putting punches in front of him. You might put him to a side and he's crouching this way, and then whack. And the knees, and I want to pay attention to the knees. Sometimes they come vertically this way, like straight up and down. And then sometimes he'll take a step out and then they'd come this way at an angle. Why? Because the hands would be here or whatever. So he'd want to come, rather than trying to stuff it through the middle, you bring it over the top of the arm this way. Boom, and it would crash into the side. So he has this ability to bring the knees in different directions depending on the posture, head slot, guard that JDM was using. And by the way, some of those will be to the body too. And he tore him to fucking, he cut him to fish bait with those knees. He cut him to fish bait. It was, I mean, I was watching this being like, oh my God, bro, this is starting to get a little hard to watch. I mean, even Bisping said it. I agreed. I normally, I'm not typically too keen on Bisping's commentary, but in this particular case, I was like, yeah, he's right. It is getting hard to watch. Jesus Christ, that was, that was ugly by the time the fight came to an end. I don't have a problem with the stoppage either. JDM is moving. If you go back and you watch, no one's really debating this, but I just want to say it out loud for the record. JDM is moving kind of on the ground, but he's not sitting up and then attacking the position, right? He's not getting to his base, chasing a single, that kind of a thing where you're resisting. He was just kind of covering up and he was still moving. There's a sense to which that is intelligent defense, but that's not the kind of intelligent defense that the referee is going to want to see. For JDM, I have to say this. I liked the early game plan, as I mentioned. I liked that he took the fight to Prates. I liked that he wanted to back him up. But it just seems to me like this is, I don't know what his coaches were thinking, right? Or what even JDM was thinking. I think that they thought that if he had to, I'm going to guess now. I'm just guessing. It's just speculation. But based on some of the corner advice that I heard, based on the way that he fought, here's my assumption. My assumption is that they think if the fight had to be standing, they would be fine and maybe even just outright win it. It doesn't look to me like they thought that the takedown was critical. I think that they thought that the takedown was important. The takedown could be an avenue to victory, but not essential. A sufficient condition, not a necessary one. And I think looking back on that, the takedown was non-negotiable. You had to get it. And there was one time he got it or almost got it and then tried to climb to the back off the fence, but then got too high. It's like they have such, and understandably, like JDM's got great stand-up, but it looked to me like they believed in their stand-up so much that, yeah, they don't want to get battered at the end of Prates' range, but if this fight stays standing, they're going to be able to eventually find their way. And that if that was their calculus, it backfired. Right? This is where a guy like St. Pierre, like people, don't get me wrong, Carlos Prates is a fucking joy to watch, and he'd be dangerous in any era too. Right? Let's be very clear about that. But this is where a guy like St. Pierre, to me, would also still have a lot of success if he were, 28 years old and in the modern game, because what he really was able to do was he could really have dynamic wrestling against guys who are better strikers or much better strikers against guys who had dynamic grappling. And this was a common theme over and over again. Was he the best striker at welterweight? Maybe not, although he had very, very good striking. Was he the best wrestler? Yes, for a time he was, but not always. But it was his ability to be very, very, very good at both, and then to be able to pick which one you needed depending on the threat. Like St. Pierre would have never duked it out with this guy. You know what I mean? He would have never duked it out with him. Why would you? He's rangier. He's in all likelihood more powerful. He's durable himself, by the way, because again, JDM did land some good shots. But you're not going to win that way. You gotta get this guy to the floor. I mean, this is the thing, I hate to admit it because his offensive game is not that interesting to me, but the defensive game of and I know he beat Prates, so it's more than pure defense, but I'm just simply saying the defensive game of Ian Gary is respectable, bro. It's respectable. That guy's ability to minimize the strengths of his opponents, not necessarily to beat them up too bad, but to minimize their strengths. He's very, very good at that. He's really, really, he's quite talented, and it kind of showed up. But in any case, That wasn't JDM. It looked to me, they thought that that would be a compliment to a stand-up affair. And to me, the right call would have been to make the stand-up a compliment to the ground affair. Now, after the fight was over, Prates gets interviewed and says he wants the winner of whenever Makhachev fights next, and he's expecting Makhachev to win. It would seem to me that in all likelihood, Makhachev is going to be a bad matchup for Prates, because on the feet, do I think Makhachev is going to beat Prates? No, I do not. I think Prates would set him on fire. But I think the ability for him to get the takedown, which was not necessarily that hard for JDM to get, and again, there's a question of how hard at the end of the first round Prates was resisting the takedown. And there was like 30 seconds left. I think he may have been just like, whatever, But I do think the ability for I think Islam will have the ability to get the takedown, and I do think he's going to have the ability to capture the back, and that could be quite decisive. So as much as I want to give Prates his due, and he has certainly owed it, we also have to give Islam his due and recognize that's going to be a very, very tough fight should they end up making it. Again, we'll see what it looks like by that time. But dude, Prates is on his way. This guy is going to get a title shot one way or the other. Not saying it's next. I'm not saying he's going to jump the queue. I'm not even saying he should jump the queue. In fact, I don't think he should. The fact that Gary beat him, although there was that fifth round rally or whatever it was, third or fifth round, the late rally by Prates, too little, too late. But there was something to be said for it. Doesn't matter. Gary was the rightful winner in that fight. Gary is the guy who deserves the title shot. Even if I think I don't necessarily think that Islam versus Gary is going to be the most exciting fight I've ever seen, but he's the deserving guy in that moment. But man, what a fun addition to the UFC roster. What a great addition to the welterweight roster Carlos Prates has turned out to be. And I want to be very clear about this. I'm going to say it one more freaking time. And I made this point on yesterday's MK as well. Let me read to you. This is just if you count the Contender Series and then his UFC run. Listen to this. On the Contender Series, he beats Mitch Ramirez in the second round, stops him in the second round. Trevin Giles stops him in the second round. Charles Radke stops him in the first round. The Leech stops him in the second round. Neil Magny stops him in the first round. He loses to Gary. That one goes to decision. Jeff Neal stops him in the first round. Leon Edwards stops him in the second round. Jack Della Maddalena stops him in the third round. Now that's back-to-back champions he has stopped via strikes. Damn. Damn. That is crazy impressive. Crazy. These guys can't make it to the only guy who could make it to the finish line is a guy who's got elite defense. That's it. The rest of them can't make it to the finish line against him. Overwhelming firepower. If it seems to me that the game plan against this guy for success has to be, we're just not going to duke it out with him. I don't care how good you think your stand-up is. I don't care how good you think you can compete. He's 32, so he's still at the peak. He's at the peak of his powers, Carlos Prates. It just seems like a terrible idea to go through this. What do we want to say about the future for JDM? He loses to Islam all 5 rounds, and then he gets his ass kicked, basically. I mean, it was competitive in the first round, but he lost it. And then he got his ass kicked in the second, and he especially got his ass kicked in the third. He's had 8 straight rounds kind of getting roughed up, 8 straight rounds of losing. Now, not against scrubs. He lost to Islam, and now he lost to Carlos. These are not bad fighters. These are very good fighters, but he got worked. This is going to be a massive, massive recalibration to a more accurate rankings position, and it really effectively removes it. This is why I hate it when these guys are – I mean, this is a fine fight to make, but this is why I hate it when these guys who lose the title and then they become the number one contender. You are not the number one contender after you lose the title, and you are especially not the number one contender after you lose the title thoroughly. Like you get mopped up. No, you are not the number one contender. Doesn't matter at this point. He'll definitely be removed from that spot going forward. But I just really don't like that rankings position when they do it that way. Let's take a look at some of these numbers here if we can for this one. I'll put these on the screen. Let's see here. Let's do it this way, like that. Yeah. All right, let's look at look at these fucking numbers, bro. Holy shit. Let me blow these up a little bit. That's better. Bro, look at these numbers. Carlos Prates scores 3 knockdowns, 104 significant strikes of 193 attempted, just 41 for JDM. 2 takedowns, which he got, and then pressuring him. He got about a minute and 13 seconds of control time. Not much to be said for it. That first round, as you can see, 15-22. Again, these are numeric differences. So take it for what it is worth. And he had the 1 takedown. He got a little bit of control time in the end of that round right there. So, round 1 goes to Prates, but okay, fair enough. It was kind of close. Then you can see him begin to peel away here in the second. He does get the takedown, same amount of control time, but there's just not much to be shown for it. He gets dropped in this one. You can see the knockdown. Then he gets dropped 2 times in this one. And he had 1 fucking significant 1 strike total he landed in the third round. He did nothing in the third. Let's take a look at the targeting on this one. Man, look at the targeting by Prates. He still, this was what's so funny to me. He still targeted the head, but the leg kicks, just 13%, account for 2 of the knockdowns in that. So think about that. He only targeted the legs a little more than 1 out of every 10 strikes that he threw, and nevertheless scored 2 knockdowns off of that. Just noodle that for a moment. You're barely targeting the leg, and it's responsible for knocking this guy down multiple times across multiple rounds. That's absurd. That's absurd. It's not just heavy hands, although he's got those too. He's just got heavy everything. Everything he throws is Armageddon. Targets the body 10%, not that much. Okay, fair enough. Targets the head 75%. Let me see how Prates targeted. Let me see how he targeted in any kind of other fight. I want to see what that split looks like. So this one didn't go very long. This one went a little bit longer. Let's look at that targeting. Okay, Carlos here. Much more to the body, much more to the leg, less to the head. Let's look at against Leon Edwards. Was it 75-10-13? Here it is, Carlos, 38-9. Went to the leg a lot in that contest, barely did it. So this guy's targeting, in terms of how he apportions it, he can vary it greatly. If he needs to go heavy on the leg, he can. If he needs to make the body work the most dynamic, he can. Or if he wants to headhunt, he can do that too. And I want to make a point here. The headhunting, remember, this is targeting. This is targeting. So what I mean by that is some of this is punches he's throwing to the head, but a lot of it is knees he is also throwing. It is what target he is aiming. But I just want to point out, this could be coming from a lot of different directions. It could be coming from an elbow in the clinch. It could be coming from a knee up the middle, or a knee over the guard, or, you name it. Like, it's a lot of different ways in which he's able to achieve that. I mean, just look at this output, dude. Once he got going, he basically never looked back, just fucking completely railroaded him. There you have it, man. What a fucking performance from that guy. Wow. Carlos Prates is awesome. This dude is awesome. Is he not? He is so fun, so dynamic. So let's just, we'll move to some of the other fights here in just a second. Let's just talk about what's next for JDM. As I mentioned, 8 rounds lost in a row. Yes, there's going to be the rankings recalibration, but like, what do we understand about him more now that maybe we didn't understand quite as much? Partly it's his upper limits, although as you can see on any given night, he can do quite a bit. But to me, it's like, here's where I come down on him. His stand-up is super formidable, but it's not the best in the division in terms of its imminent threat. Okay, it's very, very good, but it's not imminently threatening, whereas Carlos is imminently threatening. Like, doesn't need much time to really alter a round or a fight, whereas JDM is a little bit more accumulative, and his wrestling isn't good enough to make up the difference for not having the ultimate A side or ultimate, top end limit for striking. In other words, like his wrestling is there defensively, but it doesn't look to me like it's very there offensively. He doesn't have the ability to like impose wrestling, impose grappling on a guy. He's got pretty good ability, Islam notwithstanding, to resist it. I know that fight was not a great showcase, but his overall record does that. To me, it's like, I don't know what to say, man. He's still young enough where there are some skills to be built. But if I was him, losing badly and getting your ass kicked in front of your home country can't be easy. But I'm going to say this, maybe when he's over the despair of this loss, I think he might look at this and say to himself, at just how old is JDM? He's just, 29? What is he? Something like that, right? What is he? He is 29. I think he's going to look back on this day and say to himself, if he does it right, he still has time to actually get better. He is going to drop in the rankings, so he's going to get an opponent of a more commensurate level. And there is still some opportunity for him down the line. Carlos is 32. He'll be 33 in a few months. So he doesn't, clock is ticking a little bit more for him. But there's simply no denying that if you're JDM, you've got a lot of really good skills, but you don't have them in the right amount to be overwhelming depending on who the opponent is, or the ability to switch it up depending on who the opponent is. And the wrestling is too defensive, not offensive. And again, I know there's defensive problems too, but it's too defensive, not offensive enough. And if you really need to be able to impose that on a guy, you just don't have that. And this is, I think, the big difference. You can hear Godzilla screaming in the back because she's very delighted it's her 7th birthday party today. All right, very good. Again, if you want to get a question in for the Q&A period, you can fire those in. Let's go to the other fights on this card if we can for just a moment, and then we'll do the Q&A part of this. So in your co-main event, man, I don't even know what to say. Quillen Salkild defeats Beneil Dariush at 329 of round number 1. Dariush kind of, I think, dropped him early in that fight, although, semi-flash knockdown, or he wasn't able to, jump on him afterwards. But Salkild gets back to his feet, and, Dariush is kind of putting him through the paces, particularly with wrestling against the fence and whatnot. But eventually you see Dariush on a single, or maybe it was a high crotch, you have to go back, or head outside single, whatever you want to call it, and then lets it go to come upstairs with an elbow, but doesn't really land it. They get reversed. So now Salkild is the one on the outside, and Dariush is the one closest to the fence, and he gets bombed on, dropped. Salkild finishes him off from there. So I'm not saying Salkild didn't perform well. Hello, he was able to recover from being knocked, or whatever it was, off balance, because they don't, Fight Metric is not recording it as a knockdown, but he did get 2 takedowns on him, and that there's something to be said for that. Got some control time from it as well, though a lot of that is pushing him up against the fence. The point I'm trying to make is, once Salkild was able to land some punches, and it was a big right hand that ultimately sat Dariush down, Dariush's durability is completely gone. Beneil Dariush is a very, very talented guy. The things he can do, by the way, remember, against Gamrot, stuffing all those takedowns, that's very, very difficult to pull off. And he did it. And he'll bomb on you if you let him. But his ability at this stage of his game to be resistant to punching of any kind of, especially against a good, I don't know how hard of a puncher Salkild is, but it was an accurate punch, and he's got stoppages via strike. So he's obviously a skilled puncher. There's just nothing left. I like Beneil. I've interacted with him. Very, very nice guy. Doting father. There's just nothing left for him in the UFC. Now, maybe there's some kind of way to reimagine a different fighting future elsewhere, but even then, if your resistance is that compromised, I don't really know what it would be. It's just gone. And listen, man, dude, Dariush has fought tough fucking bastards. Dude, I mean, he's been fighting hammers for over a decade, bro. He fought Jim Miller 11 years ago, and even guys before that, Michael Johnson, Chiesa, Vic, Rashid Magomedov, Barboza, Evan Dunham, Dober, Camacho, Close, Fajeda, Ferguson, Gamrot, Charles, Saryukian, Hanato, Moicano, BSD. I mean, the guy is fighting hammers, bro. But it's just not there right now. It's just not there anymore. So, this is a real nice win for Quillen Salkild, and he's on quite a heater. He had the fight against Anshul Jubilee in February of 2025. Then in June of 2025, he wins against Yanal Ashmuz. These are not difficult fights to win, but he wins them. Then in the end of 2025, so he had 3 in 2025, he knocks out Nasrat Hakparas. That was tremendous. Starts in January of this year, beating Jamie Malarkey, smokes him inside 3 minutes, and now Beneil Dariush smokes him just outside 3 minutes. He hasn't seen the second round since the June fight against Yanal Ashmuz. He's on his way. It's just a little hard for me to declare right now, oh, this guy is the future of lightweight. I think he's an interesting ranked fighter now, I think you heard, I think Michael Bisping in the post-fight interview being like, "You're going to be ranked on Monday." The crowd liked that. They got a roar out of that. I think that is true. I think he will be, and these are going to be again the kinds of challenges that are commensurate with his current ability. But like, I just want to be a little bit. I want to see a little bit more before I'm like, "Oh, this guy, future title contender." I'm not saying he isn't that. I'm just saying I'm going to remain agnostic until I see a little bit more. But certainly, if you commit errors against him or you are, he is skilled. He is a good puncher. He's an accurate puncher. He's well rounded. He has good takedowns, good takedown defense in general. Darush is going to be tough to look good against in that way, but Saul Kidd is going to be unforgiving for mistakes. Unforgiving. And that's what you saw here. I just also think it's worth saying out loud that Darush is just not what he once was. All the skills are there, but a lot of other stuff is not. And I think if you care about a fighter and you care about like their home life and their life after fighting, all these people are like, you can't tell another fighter when to retire. Yeah, you're right. You're not. I can't. I'm not his boss. Commission's not going to listen to me. UFC's not going to listen to me, and the fighter damn sure ain't going to listen to me. But I think it's important for people to say out loud how they feel about something when they feel like someone's health is jeopardized. Whether or not anything happens from it is a separate question, but the reasonableness of the view and the humanity that we should have in the fight game for people who are in situations like this, I think is actually important. The modern fight game seems very, very devoid of humanity. And I think if you're not careful about maintaining those lines, they not only get blurred, they can disappear. And bad things happen when you get to situations like that. Okay. Elsewhere on this card, Steve Erceg defeated Tim Elliott. Tim Elliott started out strong, but once you could see Erceg could counter him, so Erceg would throw, pull on the counter, and so Erceg was going not 1, 2, he was going 1, 3. So he's hitting him on the 1, 3. He was doing this constantly. Tim Elliott switching stances, trying to stay active. Again, I think got it. How many takedowns did they award him for this? Let's see. They gave Elliott none. Oh, sorry. What am I saying? 2. They gave him two takedowns out of 11, and they both came in the first round. He was 0 for 4 in the second round on takedowns, 0 for 4 in the third round on takedowns, and Erceg getting his own takedown in the second round himself. But really, Elliott had a volume play early, both with takedowns, both with like the amount of strikes he was throwing, switching stances, doubling up on left hooks, bop, bop. He was really good about doing that. But once Erceg was able to get his range and his timing, he moved downhill on him by the time of the third round. Look at these numbers for the third round, dude. Look at this shit. Look at these numbers. So again, Elliott, these are numeric, not qualitative total. These are quantitative, but they kind of can be shorthand at times for things. Elliott started out better, 39-24 on quantitative totals, but then it switched big time in the second, and he ran away with it in the third. I'm going to guess the majority of that is going to be headhunting by Erceg. Yeah, look at that, almost 90%. This is going to be a huge problem that Erceg is going to have to confront. He is a headhunter. There was no legs targeted at all, whereas you can see, look at the diversity here that you can see from Tim Elliott. It's not that like what Erceg does is bad. What he does, he's very good at. There's just not a lot that he does. He's not it's the same thing with JDM. It's like JDM's a very good boxer / kickboxer to a degree, but he's not the most. He's not like pillow fisted. He hits hard, but he's not like the hardest hitter. And he's got a little bit of a volume striking game, and he doesn't have the ability to impose wrestling. Like it's a little bit of Erceg in that. Erceg is accurate, good boxer, technical, but there's just a narrow constraint on the offensive options that are available to him. He's going to beat good guys. He's going to lose to good guys as a consequence. There's just no two ways about it. So it's a nice win, good way to recover, and then after the first, and then kind of turn the tide, and then really just sort of pick him apart at range, which is what he did, avoiding the takedowns. It was a strong performance from Erceg. But I just feel like when you see guys who have this kind of offensive identity, you can take an Erceg skill set and you can actually go pretty far with it. In certain cases, you might be able to win a title. It's not like you can't do good things, but it's going to be a perpetual weakness against the truly elite over time. You know what I mean? All right. What else do we have here? I don't even know what the fuck this was. Marwan Rahiki just beat the shit out of Ali Schmid. This was actually great. If you actually notice, Rahiki is so not spamming, but throwing a lot of overhand rights. And then you see Schmid kind of ducking to get out of the way. So what does Rahiki do? He throws another one. It was like the third one I think he threw in a row. You see Schmid get over, and then so what Rahiki does is he marries that with like a kind of like a shovel hook or a shovel punch where he comes over, and it's not a vertical uppercut. It's more almost like it's not quite a linear hook this way. It's kind of like in the middle, right? So he does one of those and just absolutely crushed him as a consequence, dropped him, and then finished him off from there. The dude's 4-3. He should not be in the UFC. Ali Schmid should not be in the UFC at all. Rahiki looks pretty good to me. Looks like he's real talented, slick, pretty powerful, accurate. I like what I saw, but this was an LFA fight, if anything. Brando Pericic defeated Shamil Gaziev at 3:44 of round 2. First round, these two were killing each other. Basically, Pericic would just back up, and as soon as Gaziev got close, he would hit him with right hands, rocked him several times, but he managed to hang on, came back. The fight picks up in the second round with basically the same dynamic. These two just landing big shots on each other. You saw Gaziev kind of rebounded a little bit in the second round before Pericic turned the tables again, bombed on him, eventually dropped him, and then put him out of there. It took the fight on, I think, a relatively short notice or whatever the case may be. No, that was Louis Sutherland, excuse me. But in any case, not the most technical thing, but if fights are not going to be technical, at least they can be slugfests like this one was. Gaziev took a shitload of abuse before he finally went down. So, in as much as bad heavyweight can be fun, this was fine. But then that brings us to Louis Sutherland defeating Tai Tuivasa, bro. Bro, do you guys realize? I want you to understand something about this card and about the modern UFC generally that is just so hard for me to like look the other way on. Do you realize there were 3 fighters? So heading into this contest, I have the notes here. Vince Morales had lost to Jonathan Martinez. This is consecutive. Vince Morales had lost to Jonathan Martinez, Miles Johns, Taylor Lapilus, Elijah Smith, Raul Rosas Jr., and now Colby Thickness. All in a row. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in a row for him. Then on this card, you had Gerald Mearshart. He loses to consecutively RDR, Brad Tavares, Michael Oleksiejczyk, Kyle Dawkins, and now Jacob Malkoun. Okay. And then also on this card, you had Tai Tuivasa, who, again, this is consecutive, has lost to Cyril Gane, Sergey Pavlovich, Alexander Volkov, Marcin Tybura, Jair Zinho Rosenstrike, Taliesin Teixeira, and now 7th in a row, Louis Sutherland. You had 3 guys on 5+ fight losing streaks on this, who all, by the way, all 3 lost on this card, Tai Tuivasa being the worst of them. Tai Tuivasa, I don't think can win in this organization. I think that's been pretty obvious for a while, and now it is simply undeniable to the point where it is painful that we still have to do with it. How the fuck has this guy been in the UFC 9 years or something approximating that, and he still is not using underhooks to defend takedowns? Now, you can use certain kinds of front headlocks or front head pinch series. There's different ways to do it, but even then, he's not really doing it all that correctly the majority of the time. And so, dude, he got fat man rolled twice. You guys know what a fat man roll is? It's really quite it's simple. If you're on all fours, if you're in quad pod or in turtle or something, not in quad pod, but if you're in turtle and someone puts their arm over your back and it's kind of loose, like they're just kind of hanging it over your back, because what you should be doing is kind of having your hand gripping their hip and then pulling that hip to kind of off balancing them a little bit. Now, you don't always have to do it, but it's a good way to think about it. You just don't want to have your arm lazily hanging over, and especially if your weight is forward, and it's not like really under you, they can just pinch the arm, the guy underneath, and then roll, and you come around. It's called a fat man roll. He did it fucking twice to Tuivasa. Tuivasa, once he's on his back, the round is over. He's not going to fucking get up. He can't fight in this organization anymore. This has been obvious for a while, and now we're just wasting everyone's fucking time with this. I don't know what he's doing in the training room. I don't know. I just don't understand. Like, dude, he just wasn't using underhooks in this fight. What the fuck is he doing? Like, literally not even using underhooks, not even using underhooks to defend takedowns, not using underhooks when they were 50-50 to turn Sutherland into the fence and then maybe break away. Like, not trying to capture inside control ever, just trying to headlock and overhook his way to standing. Which again, there are ways to kind of wrap the head as through like a sometimes a modified guillotine or even just a front headlock. There are ways to do that and stand. A, he wasn't even doing that correctly, and B, like there are times where you just gotta let that go. You need to start firing underhooks, fella. You know, inside control is going to be better than outside control in general, and significantly so. And he just wasn't even firing underhooks. This was just like, dude, a waste of everyone's time, a gigantic waste of everyone's time. He's got to go do something else. This is, an indictment of the state of heavyweight. And I'm not trying to say he's like a bad person and deserves condemnation, but I am trying to say, dude, like this organization should have this kind of standards where this kind of shit is not allowed. And they're the one who booked him. They're the ones who booked him, and they booked up. The other ones I mentioned too. I like Gerald Meerschaert, but he's clearly at the end of his run. And Vince Morales, just can't fight in this organization. And they got long. There was only 2 fights on this card where both guys entering were coming off of wins. There's too much bloat on the UFC roster. The events are too long. There's too many of them. And the thing that drives me crazy is like, well, who would you cut? Man, there's low-hanging fruit. Like, it's not difficult to ascertain who should be cut. You know what I mean? It's not like, wow, we got to make some real tough calls. These are not tough calls. These are easy calls. And they won't make them. I guess at this point they will. But, I thought that after the last 3 of these losses that they would be like, all right, well, we've come to a fucking close here. No, they keep doing it. It's painful. It's painful, to put it mildly. Yeah. All right. Let's see what you guys got for questions on the Q&A. If you want to fire something into the super chat, that'd be great. I know it's early in the morning for some of you, especially on the West Coast. Let's see what you got. All right. Ridiculous. They're going to make Prates fight another contender before Islam. Your thoughts? I don't see Gary beating Islam at all. I don't see Gary beating Islam, but I see Gary surviving against Islam and then kind of making it a weird event as a consequence. I guess we'll see. I don't really know. I don't think he necessarily has to fight anyone else. They may have him fight Morales. One never knows. But I don't. To me, Morales, I'd like to see fight one more. And Morales versus Prates is so good that I wouldn't mind if they made it, but I'm with you. I don't think Prates needs to fight anybody. Dude, you finished 2 champions back to back. It's pretty good. It's pretty good, Shout out to Violetta, heir to the Thomas throne. Yes, today is a big party for her. All right, Luke, obviously fighters need a bit of psychopathy to be comfortable performing so much damage to another person. What, in your opinion, is the right level of that cruelty? What is the optimum cruelty? However much you can dish out legally within the rules. It's a cruel fucking game. I like sportsmanship in MMA, and I like humanity in MMA, but those are not the things that make MMA MMA. Violence makes MMA MMA. And the ones who are mean, the guys who like Prates' striking game is fucking mean, bro. He hits you in it like it looks like he's trying to like hurt your soul, like not even physically, like emotionally. You know what I mean? Like it's a beating from I don't know, a trusted relative or something, and it's like shocking to your like conscience about like how damaging it is. That's a weird way. That's a weird way to explain it, but you know what I mean? Like it's punishing like deeply. So I'm okay with fighters being within the rules. Within the rules, I'm totally okay with guys being cruel to each other. You kind of need to do it. It's just when the spigot is turned off, when we've closed the show, it's time to have your humanity again. So you have to channel your inhumanity for winning ways, but you also need to just be, recognize that dude, you got to be mean. You got to be mean. I think if you're really concerned about hurting, I've mentioned this before, the call to violence. I've mentioned this before. I don't think most people understand. Till you, I guess. I mean, I don't know what most people are like, but for me, it wasn't really clear like how I would feel trying to hurt another person that much until I tried to do it through training. And training's more controlled and it's less violent than a lot of this. But like there's a lot of violence in training too. It's not as automatic as you think. Some people cannot bring themselves to do it. They cannot bring themselves to cruelly hurt another person. But then there are people who are not only able to do it, but can lean into it, and those fuckers are dangerous. And then if you make them skilled, they're like Taporia is like that to me. He's like that. Joaquin Hansen was like that. Is Prates the best striker in the UFC? It's a good question. Most power pound for pound. He might be that for sure. Joe Martinez is better than Buffer. I've been a big Joe Martinez. I don't hate the Buff. Please don't misunderstand me. Buff's a legend. I think we all think Buff's a legend, and I'm no different. I'm no different in that regard. But I like Joe Martinez. I think he's very, very talented. Your mileage may vary. All right. Is Prates the best striker? He's on the short list. I mean, I would say he's one of the more devastating strikers. When I think of best, I think of guys who have a little bit more technical prowess around defensive orientation or he might be. He might be. To me, his game is varied and devastating, but a little bit more narrow than some other guys. But he's on the short list, top 5 at worst, Devastating puncher. Good morning, LT. Watch the whole card. Damn. Now I'm having coffee and watching the best in the game do his thing. Thank you. Happy birthday to the Tukester. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it. Thank you guys for being here. It's so awesome. All credit to Prates. His game is powerful, nasty, and aggressive. Yes, it is. It feels like JDM has lost his usual tenacity. He never looks sure of himself. I'm going to disagree with this slightly. I do think he lost it pretty quickly. I think he came out and maybe he was just trying to will himself into backing up Prates, and he did again for like the first minute or two, roughly, maybe half a round. I have to go back and watch the tape. But I don't think he really lost faith in himself until he really began to feel the heaviness of what Prates was landing on him. And then I think he realized I'm in for a long fucking night, trying to deal with this. And then that's when really the enthusiasm gap waned. It wasn't until he was like, oh shit. Dude, have any of you ever sparred a heavy puncher? It's terrifying. It's terrifying, dude. You just don't know if the next one that they throw. Like, this is why sparring a heavy puncher is both terrifying, but also like a little less terrifying. Because you can say to them, hey, man, don't fucking kill me. But sometimes these guys can't even help it. It's terrifying, dude. You just don't know, especially if they're fast too. Like, what is the next thing that's going to come my way, and how am I going to prepare for it? And what if they start putting combinations together? Your mind starts realizing, I can't do this. And to shut that up, you need some kind of an answer. And JDM couldn't get it, right? You could see his mind going, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. And that would happen to George St. Pierre or Islam, and they can switch gears. They can go, all right, I'm just going to get the back. I'm gonna take this fucking guy down. I'm gonna get the back. So they didn't give up on themselves or on the pursuit of the fight so easily, because they knew they had a real. I mean, Islam hasn't fought him yet, but I'm saying in similar situations, where St. Pierre needed to go against was up against a decorated or otherwise heavy-handed striker, he could be like, I'm outmatched here. But, and JDM never had that. Crazy how Prates likely would whoop everyone else's ass in the division, but stands 0% chance against Islam. The level Islam is on is just insane. Again, if it was 4-ounce Muay Thai, Islam would be looking up at the lights, But the ability to play the levels, man, the ability to play the levels at such a high level is what makes all the difference. How would you rate Prates' firepower all time? It's historically good. Seems like a step below Matt Serra. Matt Serra had big power for his size, but I don't think he pound for pound was the same. How do you see as the next biggest matchup for both guys? Prates versus Morales. I fucking love that fight. JDM versus the winner of Buckley versus Brady. I like JDM versus the winner of Buckley Brady. That's a good one, because they were going to do JDM versus Brady anyway, and then that fight fell apart. So I like that one. Prates Morales. I think Morales has got the firepower to also deal with Prates, but I think would want to mix up the wrestling in that one. And I think he could. I actually think he's got the skills to do it. Not saying I would pick him to win automatically. I'm just saying, like, that's an interesting fight, right? I like the Morales fight, but I just don't think you need to. I love that fight so much, I would not complain, but you don't need to make it, I think is the point I would make. The knees were fucking hard to watch, but dude, those knees from Prates, dude, can you imagine how shitty tomorrow? I mean, because it's the nighttime in Australia, how shitty JDM is going to feel tomorrow. Like, not just in his soul, but like physically. He got fucking lumped up, man. And these guys are tougher than you could ever imagine. I've said this before. The thing that has always stood with me about MMA fighters is just how uniquely tough they are. So he'll deal with it, but he needs a major recalibration around who he's fighting and what he's working on. A bug just landed in my coffee too. Drink that thing. JDM was one more leg kick from going down. One more leg. He went down twice. I know what you mean. Like, he was hanging on by a thread, but dude, he went down twice. Like, holy shit, he got worked. Do you think Prates has shown enough improvement to warrant a pick against Ian Gary? That's a little harder to say. Islam, obviously harder because Islam, but a tough fight nonetheless. This is the thing about Ian Gary, bro. His game does not excite me, but you have to respect it. He nearly beat Shavkat Rakhmonov, and he did beat Prates. And a bunch of other good guys too. Like, dude, he's fucking good. He's fucking good. He's good. He's defensively super sound. And you just have to respect that. So, that's a tough thing to say exactly. How many takedowns did, let's see here. How many takedowns did, okay, Gary. Dude, Gary got 4 takedowns against him. He got 2 in round 3 and then 2 in round 4. Didn't get a whole lot of control time with it, but, was able to mix it in, right? Stay on his feet, touch and go. He numerically outlanded Carlos in every round. Look at this. This is the Ian Gary Carlos Prates fight from how long ago was this? This was when was this? This was April of last year, so about a year ago. Look at these numbers. Ian Gary doubled him up in round 1. Again, quantitative totals. Basically tripled him up in round 2. Doubled him up, more than doubled him up in round 3. Basically doubled him up in round 4. And then, round 5 was the close one where you saw that bit of a resiliency, failed on 6 takedown attempts. Okay, fine. But you get the idea. Like, dude, Gary's good, dude. He's good. I don't like his game, but he's fucking good. I'm not saying I'd pick Prates to beat Islam, he writes, but if he managed to hurt and stop him, I wouldn't be surprised. Dude, he can hurt. Yes. Like, straight up guy against guy, Islam's hard to pick against, right? He's really, really hard to pick against. But Carlos is a threat to anybody. Again, one punch can change everything. Oh, well, that's just a puncher's chance. Yeah, but then there are guys who have like puncher's chance, where like any slight mistake can be devastatingly costly. Carlos is like that. Morales, more clubbing power. Prates is way sharper. I think Morales is also more of a like a isometric kind of wrestling hold strength guy too, That's a fair distinction. Do you think Jack should go to 55? He looks so much smaller than Carlos. Great point. And would he do better down there? Again, if you're going because you're just trying to hide from your lack of development in your skill set, that's not really going to work very well. I don't know how easily he can make 55. He's not a huge welterweight, but he's not a small one either. Carlos looked like a middleweight who was cutting down or something. But I don't know. It really is just how much can he make the weight? I don't know what the answer to that. 15 pounds is a lot. But dude, like we can all see that's not the issue. JDM doesn't suck. JDM's a good fighter, but look at the limits you've now seen from him. And by the way, in both fights, I'm honestly going to say this. You're going to say, "Oh, his striking couldn't hold up against Carlos Praches's." True. But I might argue, what was the common denominator between the Islam fight and between the Praches fight? It's the fact that the wrestling failed him in both cases. Defensive wrestling and grappling failed him against Islam. Offensive wrestling and grappling failed him against Carlos. There's more to it than that, certainly, but there's a common denominator there. Sitting in front of a guy who mauls inactive targets, no plan to draw out committed strikes, no attempt to pressure the constant resets. Shit corner. We're talking about well, he didn't pull. Okay, if we're talking about JDM, no plan to draw out committed strikes. I think he was honestly so rattled by the power and what was landing that he was trying to just not make any error. And once you do that, you can't commit to the game. Again, you can run, you'll only die tired. Heavy wrestler or mover is the only way to beat Carlos Praches. I mean, I'm not saying that there's nobody who could strike it out with him, but that seems like a really very, very difficult way to get a fight won against him. You got to be able to mix up the game with him, And again, Ian did it to an extent, touch and go, right? Bop, I'm out. Bop, I'm out. That kind of thing. My man threw like 4 body kicks and JDM's entire rib cage was bright pink. See what I mean? Totally true. This is a totally true comment. Barely targeted the legs, got 2 drops off of him. I mean, 2 knockdowns. Like, dude, what? What? JDM got smoked like a congressional district. Yeah, they were gerrymandering that punishment. Does JDM need new coaching? Last 2 fights while getting mashed, I heard a lot of, come on, Jack, dig deep, etc. Not much technical guidance. I heard some technical guidance about they wanted him to throw punches in certain scenarios. So that's not totally true. But to me, it's like, again, I think they need to reflect on how good his stand-up is. And I don't mean how technical and how flashy or the things he can do. I mean, look at these motherfuckers in front of you. If you can't take them down, how likely is it that you're going to be able to stop them with strikes? That's the way I would look at that. And there's going to be a lot of guys that's going to be the case. But there's going to be some limits to that too. And so in a scenario where you can reasonably say, we're a little bit outgunned here, what else can we do? And you don't have the ability to follow that up in another dimension, that's the problem. They're overestimating his strengths relative to his opposition in certain cases. And I think that really, in my opinion, and that really cost him. Please bully Long Island Luke for he and Gaff picking Ty on MK. They both picked Ty? Also, I think you mean to say Carlos beat JDM like he owed him money. Yeah, that'll work too. Have you checked out Dominic Cruz's podcast yet? The TJ episode was great. I've seen clips. Shouldn't they have thrown the towel after 2? Okay, I thought about that, but no. The kid is 29, and after the leg kick dropped him, everyone knew it was over, and Praches is a brutal dude. No, but they could have. I don't know what the rules are in Australia, but if there was a way to throw the towel in the middle of the round, I would have done it. But it wasn't such a beating after 2 that you couldn't rationalize, like, oh, there's no way we can send him out for round 3. I know what you mean. I do know what you mean. And in the end, you would have been right? Because look what happened. But it's a question of like partly individual feel for a situation, but also does the situation meet a certain level of evidentiary basis where you can say, okay, he's doing X, Y, and Z, and once you do these things, we just have to call it off. It didn't get to that point for me. It was getting bad, but it didn't get to that point. Do you think JDM fractured his shin? The way he was wincing in agony from some of those leg kicks looked rough. Dude, you can wince in agony from muscle and other forms of soft tissue damage without your leg having to be fractured. I mean, I'm not saying it was or it wasn't, but it doesn't need to be to grimace like that. Guys, if you've never, I'm not some Billy Badass. I'm an old man at this point. Like, who the fuck cares about this? But I'm just saying, if you've never felt leg kicks before, they're they're not awesome. They hurt real fucking bad. Even for experienced guys with great pain tolerance, like they can be devastating, you know. Also, you no sold my question last year when I asked if you've seen a more vicious knockout reel at welterweight. Where would you rank it all time now? Well, at the time, it was on its way, but it's not nearly as good as it is now. I mean, a year ago, we were talking about the Ian Gary fight, but look what he's done since then. You know, the spinning back elbow, knocking out Leon, and now this one. Now you're starting to beat some real dudes. You know what I mean? So now, I mean, you were right to highlight that the guy had real promise. Fair enough. I wasn't as on board as you, and I should have been in that sense. But we do have to be careful as you move up the ladder, like what they're able to do. And now that he's moving up the ladder and then still getting stoppages like this, now we can begin to say, wow, man, he's really quite gifted at this kind of a thing, you know. I think Ian would perform better than Prates against Islam. However, Prates would be more likely to win. Yeah, Prates is a greater threat to Islam. Ian is better at, like, you know, taking someone's game from a 10 to a 7, you know? What could Ian add to his game to beat Islam? I mean, it's a little late, brother. A jab, the ability to jab and takedown defense. I don't know what else there would even be. Honestly, I think JDM could suffer the cut to 55. I don't know. I'm not saying he can or he can't. I genuinely don't know. But you got to be careful about that. And again, I'm going to say it one more time. Jumping weight classes to avoid technical growth means you're going to stall out at the next weight class too. You know, getting out of a weight class because you just can't cut the weight anymore and it's bad for you, that's different. That's different. But like, oh, shit's going bad. Well, what weight class can we go to now? Doesn't work. Doesn't work. Oh, and then C-Shank is just gifting memberships out here. All right. Anybody else got anything else here on the post-fight show? I'll drink this coffee. If you got anything else, let me know. Here we go. Dr. Phil. Thank you, Dr. Phil. Very kind of you. Thank you. All right. With that out of the way, thank you guys so much for watching. I really, really appreciate it. I'll have some coverage of the Inoue and Nakatani fight. I'll have more coverage of this. I want to do a breakdown on what Carlos was doing. And yeah, we'll have a good time. I got my kids' party today. There's a chance I might come back and do a Benavidez live stream for tonight. BC on the call, by the way. BC on the call tonight for the Benavidez and Ramirez fight. So have a great day. Enjoy your Saturday if you can. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Thumbs up, hit subscribe, share a link. Y'all are the best. And we got a, by the way, last thing on this, don't go anywhere yet. We got a busy May. May is going to be chock full of fights. Also PFL tonight too. Full of fights. And I'm going to be here the whole way to have fun with you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great afternoon. And until next time, well, I would say get some sleep. How about this one? Enjoy your Saturday.